Something unsettling is unfolding around Tami Roman, and the truth hasn't been laid out plainly. The woman who helped shape reality television as we know it now appears to be quietly pulling it apart, piece by piece, from the inside. What viewers witnessed on Basketball Wives may have looked like betrayal, but according to Tami, that was only the surface. The real damage happened far from the cameras. This isn't a routine celebrity dispute or recycled reality TV drama. It's the slow collapse of a decades-long system sustained by strategic editing, power imbalances, and enforced silence. What makes this moment striking is that Tami herself is the one exposing it. She's measured, deliberate, and speaks like someone who has carried uncomfortable truths for years. When she admitted she believed her friendship with Shawnee was genuine, the weight behind her words revealed a history of loyalty that had gone unreturned. To audiences, they seemed like a united front, partners steering the franchise together. But the moment Tami acknowledged that the effort wasn't mutual, the polished image of Basketball Wives' solidarity began to fracture. Their friendship didn't explode on screen the way fans might expect. Instead, it faded quietly in private messages, where reality TV relationships often go to die. Later, the reason became clearer. Tami wasn't just exhausted by conflict, she felt deliberately positioned to take the fall. She alleged that production consistently removed footage that would have reflected poorly on her co-star Kesha Nichols, footage that mattered. Why? Because, according to those close to the situation, Kesha Nichols was romantically involved with a producer. The cameras captured the chaos. The clip spread fast. Tami absorbed the backlash. Shawnee remained publicly neutral, or appeared to. That was the moment trust dissolved, and Tami's portrayal shifted. Ironically, the woman who once championed authenticity in reality television became a casualty of its most manufactured tactics. Most viewers remember the Tahiti trip, the purse, the shouting, the online uproar. What they didn't see was the pressure behind the scenes. Insiders later claimed production was scrambling. Cast members were reluctant to film. No one wanted confrontation. The network needed drama, fast. So tensions were nudged, circumstances were manipulated, and filming continued. Kesha Nichols left her purse. Tami picked it up. The argument that followed was genuine, but the narrative wasn't. Editors stripped away context and amplified the moments guaranteed to spark outrage. In a single night, Tami's image was reduced to a stereotype, while the fuller story disappeared on the cutting room floor. After a decade in the industry, you might assume she'd protect herself better. But as Tami later explained, she offered something real, and reality television, it turns out, rarely rewards that. They turned it into fiction. And here's the part that surprises most people, she isn't angry anymore. She's finished. The internet, however, never loosened its grip. Every recycled clip, every meme, every tired purse joke trailed her for years like a shadow she couldn't shake. But if you look closely, that was the moment her quiet departure began. The reunion invites that felt performative. The group trips she was suddenly left out of. Subtle signals that production had found a new storyline, and a new scapegoat. Eventually, Tami stopped showing up altogether. She skipped the reunion without apology. When fans questioned her absence, she answered plainly, she wasn't interested in arguing with people who didn't care for her outside the show. Translation? The friendships were gone. What remained was a workplace. And Shawnee, the woman she once believed was family, never checked in after she left. Not once. Malaysia faded into little more than likes and emojis. The only genuine connection she held on to was OG, one of the few who recognized the manipulation for what it was. Everyone else? There's no need for beef anymore, Tami said calmly on Instagram Live. No bitterness. No theatrics. Just the sound of someone locking a door and walking away. But betrayal is only half the story. Survival is the other. And if Tami Roman has mastered anything, it's turning public humiliation into personal leverage. When she left Basketball Wives, she didn't retreat, she expanded. Acting. Producing. Hosting. Reinventing. Her career reads like the work of 3 people moving at once. A series regular on The Ms. Pat Show. Creator and driving force behind House of Vicious. Host and consulting producer of Caught in the Act, Unfaithful, a show that blends emotional confrontation with something close to healing. These days, cameras don't chase Tami for chaos. They follow her as she guides women through betrayals that echo her own. If you judge, you can't help, she says, and this time, it doesn't sound scripted. It sounds lived in. The irony is impossible to ignore. The woman, once edited into America's favorite aggressor, now sits across from strangers, helping them process emotional devastation. And you can see it in her eyes, those moments when recognition hits. She leans forward, not to provoke, but to understand. That's the twist. The same intensity that once made her reality TV gold now makes her credible as a guide. She's been publicly shamed, privately betrayed, and still managed to build something lasting out of the wreckage. It feels almost cinematic. A villain rebranded not by spin, but by growth. Audiences respond to that. Not because it's flawless, but because it feels earned. Still, success doesn't erase damage. Tami continues to battle demons that fame only amplified. Her struggle with body dysmorphia isn't rumor, it's something she's spoken about openly, painfully. "I always feel overweight," she once admitted. This, from a woman whose sharp frame regularly triggers online concern. Diagnosed in 2008, but shaped long before, back when she was 13 and a modeling agent dismantled her appearance point by point in front of a mirror. Your folds. Your chin. Your knees. That kind of scrutiny doesn't fade, it embeds. Decades later, even success can't silence the distorted reflection. She said that when people tell her she's too thin, she hears praise instead of worry. Imagine living where disappearing feels like validation. That's the quiet cruelty of the disorder. Social media only made it louder. Every post invites unsolicited diagnoses, mockery, demands that she eat. Tami laughs it off publicly, she's learned how, but the fatigue seeps through. Her husband, Reggie Youngblood, tries to shield her from it. He cooks. He checks in. He grounds her. He's 17 years younger, yet somehow the steady one. The calm. People once joked about the age gap, but Reggie proved his role. Unbothered by attention. Secure. Present. When Tami revealed she'd even offered him the option to have a child with another woman, the backlash was immediate. Critics called her insecure, unstable, desperate. But in context, it made sense. After years of betrayal, offering freedom was her way of proving trust, of saying she wouldn't cage someone she loved. It wasn't scandal. It was vulnerability. The relationship is unconventional but balanced. She earns. He stabilizes. She moves at full speed, writing, filming, producing, while he keeps the foundation solid. Not perfect. Not simple. But real. Together, they've created something almost unheard of in Hollywood, a marriage that thrives without spectacle. No constant posting. No performative affection. Just quiet commitment. But even that peace carries echoes of old wounds. When Tami married Reggie, her daughters, Lyric and Jazz, weren't there. It wasn't a blow-up or a feud, just bad timing, crossed wires, life happening all at once. Still, absence has weight. And years later, it hasn't fully lifted. That ache feels especially sharp when it comes to Jazz. When her younger daughter came out as bisexual on Instagram, Tami didn't hear it in a conversation or a private moment, she found out the same way everyone else did. She's admitted how much that stung. Not because of who Jazz loves, but because of how she learned. For someone whose instincts were shaped by years of blindsides and public humiliation, that surprise hit deep. It reopened old reflexes, the urge to control, the fear of losing footing. That tension resurfaced publicly when Tami spoke on a podcast about why she didn't want Jazz's girlfriend attending her graduation. The internet erupted. Accusations flew, cold, biased, intolerant. Tami pushed back, explaining that she was protecting her mental health, that she needed space to process and adjust. But beneath the outrage, something quieter was happening. If you listen closely, what she's describing isn't rejection, it's fear. Fear of being cast, once again, as the villain. At 55, she's exhausted by expectations. Exhausted by bending herself into shapes that keep other people comfortable. "I'm not making myself uncomfortable at this stage of my life," she said. The words landed hard. To some, they sounded cruel. To Tami, they sounded honest. The world hears denial. She hears self-preservation. And somewhere in between sits a family still learning how to meet each other where they are. Jazz, for her part, has shown grace. She's pursuing music, living openly, loving freely. The friction with her mother hasn't magically disappeared, but it's being worked through. Tami says she's still learning, still figuring out how to fully accept without pretending growth is instant. It's awkward. It's public. And it's painfully human. The same audiences who once mocked her for being too raw on television now criticize her for being too transparent about motherhood. That's the paradox of Tami Roman. Speak honestly, and you're labeled problematic. Stay quiet, and you're accused of being fake. There's no winning, only surviving. And she keeps showing up anyway. In interviews. In therapy. In conversations that challenge the narrative forced on her decades ago. Meanwhile, something quietly powerful is happening behind the scenes. The same industry that once reduced her to an unhinged caricature is now handing her the reins. She isn't just the face of her current show, she's shaping it. Producing it. Deciding what stories are told and how women's pain is framed. That shift matters. The woman who once begged editors to show context now approves the final cut. And she's using that power differently. Language that reality TV once exploited, gaslighting, trauma bonding, emotional manipulation, is now being unpacked, explained, and healed from. She's turning chaos into curriculum, building something instructive out of what once nearly destroyed her. Still, don't mistake growth for quiet. Tension is brewing again, and this time it isn't coming from fans. Whispers are circulating that a former castmate is shopping a tell-all podcast, teasing revelations about what really happened years ago. Tami knows. And according to insiders, she's not amused. For someone who fought hard to reclaim her image, watching old wounds reopened for relevance feels like a betrayal she won't tolerate twice. History suggests one thing: when Tami decides to speak, she doesn't whisper. So the real question becomes, what happens when one of the architects of the system starts dismantling it with truth? And just when it seems like she's settled into peace, the story twists again. While the public assumes she's finally at rest, those close to her say something bigger is taking shape. Quiet meetings. New contracts. Strategic moves. She's aligning with major players and stepping into a new phase, one where she isn't just acting in stories, but creating them. There's talk of a reality docu-series. One rooted in brutal honesty. A project that revisits her years inside the machine and interrogates what really happened when the cameras stopped rolling. Some call it a comeback. Others see it as reckoning disguised as reflection. Either way, she's building, deliberately. The irony is sharp. The same networks that once framed her intensity as instability are now inviting her to recreate that fire, this time under her own authority. Publicly, she sounds polished. Professionally optimistic. But beneath the press statements is something unmistakable: triumph. For years, she was the employee. Now, she's the one giving notes. Approving edits. Writing checks. The woman who once argued with producers in rented houses across Los Angeles is now the producer herself. And this time, the story doesn't move without her say-so. There's a certain poetic symmetry to it, but also real risk. When the person who once fueled the chaos finally gains control of the blueprint, everyone who cashed checks off her suffering should probably start refreshing their inboxes. Power changes the temperature of every room. And Tami having it now? That makes people nervous. At the same time, her private life refuses to stay private. No matter how firmly she tries to shut the door on reality television, it keeps swinging back open, dragging her name with it. Take Tami Ever After, the spin-off meant to frame her love story with Reggie as soft, joyful, and uncomplicated. What viewers saw was warmth, humor, and the familiar messiness of family. What they didn't see, according to insiders, was how compressed and fragile the process actually was. The wedding itself happened quietly in Las Vegas. No daughters. No parents. Hardly anyone at all. It wasn't the fairy tale the edit suggested, it was hurried, private, and emotionally layered. And years later, that moment came back like a boomerang. During an argument, one of her daughters reportedly threw the truth at her: "You found out I was in love on Instagram. I found out you were married the same way." That sentence landed harder than any reality TV showdown ever could. And the weight of it still shadows Tami's choices. Every time Jazz shares something about her relationship, the blogs dissect it. When Tami's comments about not inviting Jazz's partner to graduation went viral, the framing shifted instantly. What she described as protecting her mental health was repackaged as rejection. Another public trial. Another jury with no interest in nuance. She explained herself, but explanation isn't what the internet wants. It wants a villain. What got lost was the reality of a mother learning, slowly, imperfectly, how to love differently while the entire world watches. That's the hidden cost of being honest on camera. People forget you're still human once the lights go off. There's also a version of Tami that rarely makes it to screen. Quiet. Structured. Deeply spiritual. The same woman once known for explosive moments now starts her mornings journaling, meditating, praying, even for people who once engineered her downfall. And she's writing. Not scripts alone, but pages. Reflections on fame, betrayal, and the psychological warfare of television. Word is, it's part memoir, part exposé, and early readers say it doesn't dance around accountability. Names are included. If that manuscript ever reaches the public, it won't just spark conversation, it'll shake foundations. Especially since many of the producers she's accused of manufacturing villains for ratings are still embedded in powerful positions. Imagine what happens when whispers that have circulated for years finally get inked. Her evolution has also brought unexpected allies. When she joined the Ms. Pat show, she found something she'd been missing for a long time: a set where she was valued, not provoked. Respected, not baited. A brief, unfiltered video clip, Her Bonnet Chronicles, caught the attention of the right people and quietly rerouted her career. Suddenly, she wasn't being cast as a problem. She was being recognized as talent. That's the irony Hollywood struggles to digest. The same blunt honesty that once branded her angry on one network is now celebrated as authenticity on another. Maybe Tami didn't transform at all. Maybe the audience finally learned how to see her. Still, her success unsettles people. Not because she's winning, but because she's doing it on her terms. She controls the narrative now. And history shows Hollywood has little patience for women who claim that kind of authority. Whispers are already circulating. Former producers reportedly bristle at the idea that she's being credited for helping build an empire they benefited from. One insider claims there's been a quiet push to re-edit old episodes for reruns, sanding down the harsher portrayals. Reputation management, just in case. Because they know what's coming. And while all of this simmers publicly, Tami is also doing something far more intimate, mentoring younger talent who remind her of herself back then, before the edits, before the labels, before the machine decided who she was allowed to be. We're hearing that she's been quietly schooling the next generation of reality stars, pulling them aside and telling them exactly what not to do. How to protect their image. How to negotiate contracts that don't trap them. How to secure ownership over their likeness before someone else profits from it. The irony is rich. The same woman who once showed up at MTV with a VHS tape is now advising 20-year-olds on how to outsmart the very machine that once chewed her up. It feels karmic. She became the guide she never had. And that may be her most disruptive move yet, because every piece of knowledge she hands out weakens the system that once survived off her silence. Still, this isn't a neatly wrapped redemption story. Tami's sharp edges haven't disappeared. Every now and then, you see flashes of that razor-tongue presence that made her unforgettable. On Caught in the Act, Unfaithful, when she confronts cheaters, there's a look, a pause, that feels familiar. The old Tami surfaces for just a second. It's both performance and truth layered together. And that's exactly why it works. She isn't pretending to be fully healed. She's showing what it looks like to stay human while earning a living from other people's heartbreak. She's turned betrayal into business. Insults into segments. Pain into leverage. Not accidentally, intentionally. And the results back it up. Her shows keep getting renewed. Her brand keeps expanding. Her name keeps circulating again, this time not because of fights, but because of influence. A net worth hovering around $4 million doesn't come from chaos, it comes from control. From ownership. From deciding your own moves. She's acting. Producing. Hosting. Signing off on decisions. The question isn't whether she'll succeed, it's who's bold enough to stand beside her when she does. Because for all the industry talk about loyalty and sisterhood, Hollywood relationships come with fine print. And Tami already read it the hard way. Now comes the twist no one expected. Rumors suggest her next project could put her face to face with someone from her basketball wives' past, someone she hasn't spoken to in years. Producers are staying quiet, but word is this isn't another reality format. It's scripted. A drama inspired by her own life. And here's the wild part, she's reportedly considering casting a former rival in it. It sounds unthinkable, until you remember who we're talking about. This is a woman who forgave people who edited her pain for profit. Imagine what she'd do if she got to direct them instead. That's why her story still